Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Adkup Show, where we will be diving deep into geopolitics. So, today we are exploring a hypothetical but fascinating scenario. Well, I don't know if hypothetical is the right word, but let's move on. So, what if the US tried to forcefully annex Greenland? Or isn't it even possible for the US to legally make Greenland part of its territory? Let's unpack the potential political and economic fallout and how giants like Russia and China might react. So, without wasting time, let's get started. So, first, let's start with the basics. Greenland is autonomous country within the Kingdom of Denmark. Yeah, Denmark is still running an empire. It sits strategically in Arctic, rich with minerals and potential shipping routes due to melting of ice in the Arctic due to climate change. Now, I use the word autonomous. It means that Greenland is actually a separate country with its own government and it's attached to Denmark only through constitution. It means Denmark doesn't really have complete rights over sovereignty of Greenland. So this means legally it's impossible for the US to buy Greenland from Denmark. So the only possible way is to convince the people of Greenland to join the US or use economic or military force. Now, if US applies military force on 57,000 people, then this move would shatter the norms of international law, particularly the principles of sovereignty and self-determination. It would be like walking into a global party and declaring you are taking the host's house because you like the view. That's not how the international system works. Donald Trump's idea of taking over Greenland isn't new. The interest of the US in Greenland dates back several decades, reflecting a mix of strategic, economic, and geopolitical consideration. Moreover, the US already has a massive military base in Greenland. The most notable one is Thule Air Base, which is located near the northwestern coast of Greenland. It serves primarily as a radar early warning station and supports various strategic missions. It is mostly pointed towards Russian threat. This means US already has access to Greenland's territory for security purposes. So why would the US use military or economic force to annex Greenland? It doesn't make any sense. Politically, this would be a disaster for the US. NATO, where Denmark is a key ally, would be in turmoil. Imagine the US, a founding member, turning against one of its own. This could lead Denmark to question or even reconsider its NATO membership. This will have potential to further fracture the EU and NATO. And it's not a good thing looking at Russia-Ukraine conflict. And let's not forget the Arctic Council, where cooperation is the name of the game. This would be like throwing a grenade into a peace conference. On top of all this, Germany and France have already warned the US over Greenland. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said, I quote, the principle of the inviolability of borders applies to every country, no matter whether it's a small or a very powerful one. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said there is obviously no question that the European Union would let other nations of the world attack its sovereign borders. Internationally, the US would face isolation. Countries would likely line up to condemn this action in the UN, and we could see a domino effect of nations re-evaluating their relationships with the US. This will probably lead to something more. Something like falling of NATO alliance and maybe forming of new alliances which will go against the interest of the US. Overall, it would be a diplomatic nightmare, and obviously it won't be limited to just diplomacy, with the US potentially losing its seats at many international tables. Let's not forget that the US is no longer an economic power which once it used to be. It's clearly visible that the influence of the US is on decline. There are new players like China in the international arena. We can also not ignore rising giants like India. Now let's switch gears to economics. Greenland has gold, silver, and other metals. It also has rare earth minerals. That is where the China factor comes in. Oil and natural gas are also there. So US is probably looking for these resources, if not then what threat does Greenland poses to the US? I mean, Greenland just has a population of 57,000 residents. But if the US really wants to exploit Greenland's resources, then it can surely do without annexing it, as American companies would simply visit Greenland and Denmark and sign the deal. Using force or any kind of coercion on friendly countries doesn't make any sense, and this will ultimately result in net loss for the US. Now, if the US still moves ahead and annexes Greenland by force, then expect economic sanctions from around the world. Yes, sanctions on the US is very much possible, especially from the EU and China. This is probably the new alliance which I was talking about earlier. Scenarios of EU and China uniting against the US is not impossible. Trade would be disrupted and economic partnerships strained. Investors would pull out, and this could lead to market volatility, a dip in the dollar's value, and a hit to US credit ratings, something which China would love to see. Now let's talk about how Russia will respond. Russia has its own Arctic ambitions with military bases and significant interest in region's resources. If the US moves in Greenland, Russia might see this as a direct threat to its interests. We could expect an increase in Russian military activities, possibly more aggressive posturing in Arctic, or even cyber and disinformation campaign against the US to paint them as global bully. By the way, do you think the EU might just encourage this posturing from Russia in order to maintain the balance of power? Let me know your views in comments. Moving ahead, China's reaction would be equally strategic. Economically, as I said earlier, that they could hit back where it hurts, the trade. China might impose sanctions or manipulate trade agreements, especially considering their control over rare earth minerals, which the US heavily relies on. Now, how effective it will be? Well, I don't know. Plus, China is currently preparing itself for a tariff war with the US. Diplomatically, China would likely rally international support against the US, using this to push its narrative of a changing world order where the US isn't the sole superpower. Moreover, China's Polar Silk Road initiative could accelerate as a counter-strategy. They might deepen ties with other Arctic nations or push for alternative shipping routes, further diminishing US influence. And don't forget, both Russia and China might see this as an opportunity to strengthen their bilateral ties, especially with the EU, presenting a united front against US unilateralism. Now, this alliance may not be official, but there could be some sort of understanding. In this scenario, we would also see a surge in information warfare. Both Russia and China would likely exploit the situation to cushion US motives globally, using social media, state media, and international platforms to sow discord. It would be a full spectrum response, not just military or economic, but also in realms of ideas and perceptions. It means there will be some sort of narrative building too. In the recent years, there has been nationalistic movements going in Greenland where the citizens are demanding for independence from Denmark. Now, does that mean that Greenland wants to join the US? Well, one word answer is no. Recently, Greenland's PM Mute Edge said that the country is not for sale, underlining people's desire to be master of own house. Greenlanders do not want to be American or Danish, he added. He said this at the news conference alongside Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. Now, when Trump previously floated the idea of buying Greenland during his first term as a president, from 2017 to 2021, he had to postpone his 2019 visit to Denmark because Frederiksen rebuffed this idea. According to some analysts, they think Trump is doing this to seek revenge against Danish PM. There could be some sort of reality in it, but personally, I don't think he would do this at the cost of completely changing the geopolitics, which won't be in America's interest. So, to wrap up, if the US were to attempt such an annexation, the consequences would ripple through global politics, economics, and security. This also means that the US can't just buy off Greenland. There is something more to it which is far bigger than what we are currently seeing. This entire event happening in front of us is a reminder of how interconnected and delicate our current international order is. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more deep dives into geopolitics. Catch you in the next video. Peace out.